Welcome to Shelf Help. Today we're speaking with Rogers Healy, founder and CEO of Morrison Seger Venture Capital Partners, highly respected Dallas-based venture firm. Portfolio includes Waterloo Sparkling Water, MOSH, Pathwater, Sanzo, Goat Fuel, Free Rain Coffee, just to name a few. Um, Definitely a pretty interesting background from what I know. Before focusing a lot of his time in VC, Roger spent a decade or two building what was, I think, one of the largest independently owned real estate brokerage firms, eventually merging with Compass. Yeah, a lot of really cool experience. Excited to have you on, Rogers. Maybe just first off, for the listeners that maybe aren't that familiar with Morrison Seger, I'd love to just get kind of quick lay of the land, just in terms of like the origin story when you started the firm and the kind of why behind the firm, and then we'll go from there.
Great first question. Thanks for having me. The origin story is right behind me. Van Morrison, Bob Seger. I love music. I love branding. My background in real estate. I wish it was a decade, but it was 2.5 decades. And everything was named after me because I thought that's what a business owner was supposed to do. You name your company after yourself, and that's how you brand it. And Frankenstein's monster punched me in the face, and it caused anxiety. It caused unhappiness. And yeah, I was just a shell of a human. And I've been investing, I started investing in consumer deals in 2011. And there's a men's clothing company called Mizzen in Maine, based out of Dallas, that just through random happenstance, I was one of their first investors. And I just fell in love with it. I was like, man, this is amazing. I love helping. I love giving the shirts out. I love wearing the shirts. It was so fun to watch them grow. And I kind of just started investing at bulk. I was single, I was making money, I had access to decent deals, and I had a great group of friends that would just know that if they hear consumer and Rogers is available, he'll probably invest. So it just kind of took on a mind of its own. And I never thought I would leave or had left the real estate industry. But over the course of time, it's like with you or whoever watching this or that you've had on before, I guarantee at one point you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I'm not happy. And there's this thing that I think I can do, but I'm stuck in this vertical that, we're married. And the only way to potentially consider getting out is to get a really nasty business divorce. And the thought of that was nauseating. And so,
Right.
yeah, just kind of kept investing and kept investing. And then met my wife. My wife is my hero. She's my best friend. And she's also just happy. And I was like, man, I want to be like that, but I have this and I have this monster. And so to land the plane, I love music. And we have 3 children named after musicians. Don Henley, our oldest daughter is Henley, Phil Collins, our middle daughter is Collins, and our son is Winwood after Steve Winwood. If they're watching, please call me. But I was at dinner with some high school friends like 7, 8 years ago. And a buddy of mine, Jeff Sears, said, Rogers, you get a kick out of this. One of my friends started a company called Winwood Collins. Funny enough, now I have 2 kids named after them. I go after Steve Winwood and Phil Collins. And he said, yeah. I said, what is it? He's like, it's nothing. And I go, that is badass. I'm going to start Morrison Seger after Van Morrison Bob Seger. So it just kind of metastasized. And then I'm the kind of guy that once I make a decision, it's going to happen. And so, yeah, here we are. And I also am finally on the other side of exiting my real estate companies, which wasn't as bad as a divorce, but it also wasn't something that, you know, I'm not taking up any new hobbies. I love to work. And here we are and grateful to be a part of this.
How would you define your investment thesis when it comes to CPG? What stages do you like to come in at? What are you looking for in a founder or product before you write a check?
Yeah, sure. All stages, kind of the baseline as far as the consumer stuff. It's non-controversial stuff that's easy to understand. I'm a simple guy. I mean, I'm kind of simple, but there's stuff that I like in consumer is simple. It's beverage, it's clothing, it's food, it's snack, it's family, it's pet. But I'm not really investing in furniture. I'm not really investing in stuff that's like, whoa, what is that? Tell me more. How do you drink that tea? Right? It's simple stuff because everything we do is a one-off raise. And in order for me to, pitch Tomahawk Shades or Bird Dog or Goat Fuel or Whoop or whatever it is, I have to know about it. So not only am I an investor in this stuff, but I'm also a consumer. And it's easy to go and reference a Waterloo when you're pitching Waterloo because I literally drink 12 of these a day. And so that has become kind of part of my repertoire, which really brings back the real estate side of me, right? You have a listing in real estate, you got to hustle it, you got to pitch it, you got to know the square footage, you got to know the room dimensions, you got to know what makes it special because there's more than one house probably for sale. And that to me, I can be grateful for my career in real estate versus resentful because I got pretty good at that side of the business. I just didn't like what I was selling. I wanted to sell, stuff versus a house. So yeah, it starts with a feeling, and it starts with me just kind of gut checking. Do I know this? Can I help with this? Can I add value? Is it a great deal? And learned in real estate a long time ago that a great deal is usually a deal that just makes you feel great. Right. But in raising money, it's got to make sense. And the multiples have to be there because one of the reasons we do this is to make money. And so, yeah, it all has to kind of check out. But I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, but I have lawyers and accountants that work with me. But the rest is kind of just me doing stuff like this, right? Like show up on time, say my name, follow up, send me product, ask me what I think. And if that doesn't happen initially, that's the best version of a founder you're probably going to get.
Totally.
And the handful of times that I have gone against my initial gut, a month into it, I'm like, son of a bitch. This is like I knew I shouldn't have done it. Yeah, but it's got to make sense. But there also has to be a path to actually making some money because when you bring in outside money, you know, the goal is for them to probably see more money on the other side.
I think I've heard you say that you typically go for, I think it was quote, like non-controversial companies that are easy to understand with a heavy emphasis on consumers. That might be kind of building upon what you said about something simple, something that's simple, it's easy to understand, but can you kind of expand on what you mean by non-controversial?
So your background before our podcast, I probably would not have invested in it.
Fair enough.
Nothing wrong with it. Just that, that to me could be interpreted potentially as controversial. And that's, again, nothing wrong with it. And it obviously was successful and you learned a lot and you had, a lot of great blessings, but I'm not a consumer. Right. And so, yeah, we wouldn't do anything that's in the, I've been pitched quite a few like adult pleasure toys. And I'm just like, first of all, what? Why would you come to me? Okay, I get it, but like, what? But I can't like in an authentic way pitch it. Right. And if my friends call, like we're in some awesome deals that I'm not a consumer of, but I know the bit, I know the founder, and my wife is a consumer and my kids are consumers. And that's an authentic version of me. And, all the founders that are watching this and listening today, as crazy as this sounds, I think the last thing that every founder on planet Earth should be doing is raising money, which means you need to have a great team behind you that is pitching this because if you're out raising money, who's running the company? And so having someone like me or someone from our team or someone that is watching this be your extension is so valuable and it's so effective. If it's the right person. And for me, I know my lane, and my lane is like I'm a simple guy with a lot of layers and a lot of stuff, right? But all these things in my office that are signed by all these founders, no one ever walked in and said, "What is oatmeal?" or "What is a landline phone?" "What is hydration powder?" "What is an energy drink?" It's like it's simple, and then I can tell them about it. But even if I was running a fund, which I probably will in the near future, I'm
Okay.
not I'm not going to invest in something just because everyone says it's a great deal. I've got to understand it. So, yeah, but again, the common theme is relatively simple, but definitely non-controversial. I'm invested in some sports betting platforms. Controversial? Yeah, probably, but I didn't see it invest in OnlyFans, right? The stuff that makes somebody question, you know, who knows? Like, you can make money. If you find it's something that you're great at, for the most part, you can make a lot of money. I don't want to have that. Yeah, but we have, it's like, no, this is what I stand for. And, whether it's legal or not, I like to drink alcohol. I'm really good at drinking alcohol. We're invested in a tequila company. Controversial, maybe not to me though. Right. So it's all based off kind of my perception, which isn't really fair to the masses. But look, I get it. All that stuff really is on paper better for you than alcohol. And I understand. I just would like the high school or college version of me would feel guilty taking a sip of
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a rule
Sure.
follower. I could have told you that.
You mentioned that you're maybe going to start a fund in the future. So is Morrison Seger to this day, it's all self-funded at this point?
I mean, my wife and I are contributors to all the deals, contributors, but it's outside raises. Like my network, very supportive, very kind. Uh, but I am, raising anywhere between probably a million to 15 million per deal, which is awesome, but it's also exhausting, right? It's like we just launched a secondary raise for Whoop, and I've already had probably 200 phone calls in the past 2 days, which is great. I'm hoping that 10% of them decide to invest versus just picking my track record in my company. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses to all of it.
I've definitely done a lot of deals. I'm sure some of those deals were in categories that are pretty competitive and crowded. As an example, like the energy drinks category or sparkling water, I guess Waterloo is a good example. Like, what do you need to see to write a check from a differentiation standpoint?
Yeah, it just depends on the stage. I think that, and that's a kind of crappy response, but I hope it's genuine. It just depends, and beverage is maybe my favorite vertical, and it's in large part in like my desk right now. I have two Yetis, I have three Waterloos, Liquid Death, a Junie, and a Stiller soda, and then I have a commercial sized refrigerator in my other room with like 500 drinks. And by the way, I don't have people over; that's just for me. It just depends on the stage, and it depends on every vertical in beverage is crowded, but beverage is also so freaking expensive, right? There's a reason a lot of these companies, energy drink companies included, are also having these powders. It's cheaper to make. The margins are better. It's, the shelf life is longer. It's subscription based, blah, blah, blah. But I like early stage stuff. I like late stage. Late stage stuff is easier to raise money for because it's less risky. And, you write a $1 million check in Waterloo late stage, you're probably not going to lose your money, but you're also probably not going to go and retire once it exits. So yeah, it just depends, and the beauty of my real estate background, God was kind of preparing me that, every house is different, but it's easier to comp a house in Beverly Hills to another house in Beverly Hills versus a house in Beverly Hills to a house in Pasadena, right? And so in beverage, there's alcoholic beverages, there's sugary sodas, there's better for you sodas, there's sugar-free sodas, there's energy drinks, there's better for you energy drinks. And so just to kind of learn this like nonstop, right? And we're so lucky to have incredible inbound deal flow. And I read every one and I study it. And I think just over the course of time, it's like, holy crap, I'm really learning this stuff. But there's some deals that I'm always going to gravitate towards.
From what I've heard, you've got a somewhat of a special eye for talent. What are some of the kind of key top of mind things for you that you look for in a founder or a founding team in order to be able to write a check?
Yeah. I mean, look, whether I have an eye for talent or not, I met my wife because she was at dinner with her mom and I went up to the table and introduced myself. I was like, hey, this is going to be kind of weird and creepy, but I'd love to talk to your daughter. Now, we're married with 3 children. And so wait, hold on. What was the question? I just answered.
Oh, you're good. I was just saying, what do you look for in founders or founding team that kind of
Oh,
gives
the
you
eye for talent thing. By the way, terrible analogy. I said I have an eye for talent, and I referenced my wife.
the
So let's leave that in there. But man, I'm sure I'll get some nice messages from that. It's the stuff that can't be taught, right? My real estate company, it was large, and we had thousands and thousands of people that worked there. But the one common, well, I'm not saying that from an ego perspective. I'm like, it was a lot of people in, a lot of people out, and we just kind of kept, you know, doing it. But you just know when you find somebody that's got it. Right. And there's stuff in life. And I don't know if you're a father and, if you are great, if you're not, you will
not
be.
quite
And
yet.
okay, well, it's the greatest thing ever. Right. All my kids are different, even though they're 4, 2, and 7 months. But I know that some of them have different gifts than others. And you're born with that. Being a talent scout as a business owner and as a leader, there's stuff that you're going to see in somebody that cannot be taught. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be learned. They either have it or they don't. And so that's part of finding great founders, right? Like Bird Dog. This is a software based company that helps landowners leverage their land in ways that you never knew could happen before. Like what? Right? But like I love the founder and they're crushing it. And we were their largest investor, their first investor, one of their first investors. And the right people got it, right? And so the bet was on the jockey, not the horse. Now the horse is doing awesome too. But I think that's kind of part of it is you can run your diligence and hire your fancy analysts all you want, but you just know, like you know that when somebody has it, they're worth investing in. And then you got to put a team around them to protect them, but also find a way to go and help them scale because it can't all be around about that person. The problem with real estate is that people would come, they would trust me, they would do incredibly well, and then they would bail. They would bigger, better deal me over and over and over. And I finally was just like, oh my gosh, this is crushing my soul. In venture, if I invest in Adam's best company, you can't kick me out. You can't say thanks for everything. You've helped change my life. I'm on the next investor because I'm on your cap table. And that to me is really liberating.
You've done enough deals, I imagine, good enough have worked out. Some of them haven't worked out. Um, things come top of mind in terms of traits that separate founders who survive, that pre-seed from going from idea to market and don't stall out before that Series A, which seems like can be that kind of transition is where a lot of founders can struggle and not make it over the hump.
Great question, simple to answer. Over communication, period. Proactive over communication. When things are great, over communicate. When things aren't great, over communicate. When you think you should, over communicate. That's it, right? It's like any relationship. They're all going to tell you the same cheesy response. What's the secret to a great marriage? Communication, right?
Yeah.
And, I think it's surprising to me, right? We have some awesome portfolio companies, but there's a handful that I'm just like, why am I reminding you to send me a freaking investor update? Why? Because we're busy. No, 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 no. You find 5 minutes to type an email, you put it into AI, like it's not hard. And that's really frustrating, right? And that was a awkward thing for me to get over the first few years of doing this. And finally, I'm like, wait a second, you probably wouldn't have a company if it wasn't for my group of investors. Like, have some freaking integrity and keep us updated. But then there's some that email us once a week, right? What an easy bet to make. Even if things aren't going great, right? Like, here's the weekly update, as it freaking should be. So, it's got to be communication, but it's also good. Just got to have that mindset. Like with me, like I burned the ships when doing this. I literally am a walking example at a 46-year-old man that left a successful real estate career because my heart was telling me to do venture capital. And I think that just takes some kind of psychopathic wiring that honestly is an easy investment because you just know they're going to find ways to be resourceful enough to get it figured out.
What's the number one red flag that you've seen in a founder that's made you walk away from an otherwise deal that looked very interesting?
Ego.
I think your portfolio includes a good handful of celebrity bag brands, Goat Fuel Jerry Rice, Dr. Bombay with Snoop Dogg, Free Reign Coffee with Cole Hauser. Seem like you've had some success with these. It seems like a lot of these have a tendency to fizzle out. But I think from what I know, Goat Fuel's and crushing it. They're in 25,000 plus doors at this point. What have you found is the key to finding, I don't know if you want to call it real celebrity backed brands that have real staying power?
Yeah. Well, Cole's my best friend. I was his realtor back in the day.
Okay.
So I knew Cole. That was an easy bet. I knew Jerry's son through real estate. Again, like there's never a guarantee, right? But I think like again, it's Jerry Rice, the greatest football player of all time. He works his ass off at 60 years old, like he did when he was 15 years old, which means he's got that mindset that like failure, like what? Like what? Right? But sometimes it takes time, whether it's an athlete or a musician or an actor, because a lot of them, and that's okay, they don't have a background in business and scaling a company. And so you got to be really intentional. It's the Schwarzenegger family, it's the Schreiber family, it's Cole Hauser, it's Larry Rice. We're doing a deal with Ben Stiller. It's the ones that, back to the non-controversial thing, never say never, but I would have a hard time thinking some of these celebrities we work with could get canceled, right? And like, which I hate the fact that's even a term that we all know so well, but it's true. And I think that find somebody who is kind of, beloved or well respected or well known that just happens to be part of the brand versus someone who is the brand, right? Like Cole is the greatest guy ever and he's a hard worker, but he's not running free reign coffee. But his name, image, and likeness are a huge part of it. And that means that our brand is like such a like it's just a rifle approach. We know exactly who the consumers are, but he's pulling a ton of weight. He helped us get into Walmart. He helped. It's doing this right, but they don't all work out. I was in a whiskey deal with Jamie Foxx that didn't work, and that's in large part. Jamie Foxx had some health issues, and the alcohol space is not having the best time ever. But it didn't work, and that's okay. But, the celebrity can't be the only reason, which at first was hard for me because I am a fan of, your heroes and you want to just do whatever you can to be like, oh no, but like this is why. But you got to have a team that is supporting them and surrounding them that makes it a justifiable investment.
On that topic of deals that didn't work out, especially for just some up and coming founders that are listening and things that they can avoid. Looking back now on the ones that didn't work out, any clear patterns that emerged over time in terms of why things didn't work out?
Sure. I mean, look, there's always factors that like you can't predict, like tariffs did not really help anybody. Thankfully, I think most of our companies that had some kind of impact are on the other side of it now. But again, like aluminum prices all of a sudden, it's like you can't predict this stuff. Like cotton, it just, it's not cotton, but what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. Anyway, just stuff that Mizzen and Maine changed their production to Malaysia like a month before tariffs. And all of a sudden I'm like, what? You just can't make it up. But I think that's the bet on the team is that you want to just make sure they can be, you know, just strong willed to get through it. But the ones that have not worked out, the common theme for the most part is the founders and the leaders and spending too much money. You mentioned there's been some experiences you've had where you raise a lot and you spend a lot. Just because you have money in your bank account doesn't mean you have to spend it, right? But it also doesn't mean you have to be so afraid to spend a dollar. It's like be intentional, bring in some counsel that's going to help you, invest wisely. But every once in a while, something just happens, right? You can have a group that wants to be in Costco. They get nationwide distribution at Costco. And then all of a sudden they have a contaminated order. You're screwed. That's it. You're screwed. And I think that that's the kind of stuff that you do this enough, you have enough experiences and you get a phone call. You're like, "Oh, okay, here's how we deal with this versus like, holy shit. Like, and I think that took some time to get there as well.
I've seen you be very vocal about putting a focus on women led brands, especially ones that are going after the producing goods for parents. Tell me more about why that's a focus for you.
As I pull up my pink cell phone case, I heard a saying a long time ago. If you want to get shit done, hire a mom. Okay. And I'm so glad you asked this question. Less than 3% of venture funding goes to female led companies. It's pathetic. Women are the greatest leaders on planet Earth, whether they're a mom or not. Their instincts are stronger than men, their discernment is stronger than men, and their ideas are usually better than every man's idea combined. And so I've loved that. And I've loved the fact that, initially a lot of these female led companies were like, man, we really need you. I'm like, why? They're like, because you're a guy. It's like, no, you don't. You don't. And so it's been fun doing that. And so, yeah, I think that that's a huge mission for me personally, in large part because my mom is the best mom. My wife is the best wife. My wife is the other best mom. And so, just finding a way to honor them, especially, a lot of these women have full-time jobs as well. Don't let that be a red flag for those of y'all that are watching this. If they can find a way to navigate and have their product have any kind of significance while having a full-time job, you need to take a meeting and you need to listen. So yeah, that's an awesome question. Thank you. Not that men aren't great founders, but we all have our wiring. And, I'm a sensitive guy that's in touch with his feelings, but I'm not a woman. So yeah, great question.
Are there specific categories within the, I guess, parent family space that you're I don't know, particularly excited about, or ones that you feel like are underfunded, underserved right now?
Um, I think that's where, the interesting question because it's hard where you still got to think like an investor and logically versus just like, man, I really want to help conquer this one random niche that maybe doesn't have a lot of upside. And I've trained myself that when I get an inbound deal, I'm like, oh my gosh, really cool founder, really cool story. But it's like so super niche that the outcome might not be really worth the time, which I hate to say. But look, one of my favorite founders is a girl named Whitney Rowell, and she is the founder and the face and the brand behind a company called Miracle Mama. Initially connected over her because my wife was using her brand. It's a cookie company initially that helped women produce breast milk while breastfeeding. I was like, "What's this?" And my wife's like, "Oh, this is one of my oldest friends from childhood." I was like, "Huh, I want to reach out to her." And so we got a deal done, worked together for a while, and then helped her turn it into just a powerhouse brand that's got mass distribution. It's now cookies for women that are breastfeeding, for moms that are, I mean, not cookies for women that are pregnant, then
Interesting.
breastfeeding, and then postpartum. And, it's just great. But like, I don't breastfeed, I never have, but I can get behind it. So, I like the parenting space, I like the mom space. I hope that as the world continues to turn, I think we're going to see another baby boom in the next few years. And I've said this few years, but crazy enough, I think one of the people that could go and catalyze one of the biggest baby booms ever is Taylor Swift. If they decide to
Not
have
wrong.
children, I'm not kidding. People laugh about it, and I get it, but if Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey are watching this, hello. Secondly, if y'all have a child, I think we're going to see one of the biggest baby booms of all time. And I think it's also going to bring, back, like old wholesome life. There was more weddings in 2021, I think, from any year other than like
So
1980s.
many weddings. So many
Yeah,
weddings.
but I think that's going to lead to another baby boom. People are getting married later in life, right? I became a dad at 42, and now we have three, and we want more. Oh, um, yeah, I love that, right? But I also got to study that and be like, okay, this is very logically going to happen. How can I go and be on the forefront of something that might be kind of wackadoodle right now, but over the time, I look like a fortune teller?
Yeah, totally. In terms of pitching investors, what would you say like separates a great, 60, 90-second elevator pitch from a bad one?
Preparation and authenticity, right? Again, I can't imagine. It's got to be nerve wracking doing it. I'm on a TV show called Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch, and it's literally them coming down an elevator and pitching. I can't imagine, right? But like, don't think about it too much. If you go and you're like, this could be the greatest moment of my life, it's like, no, 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 no. It's your job, right? It is your job. Just show up, be prepared, and be believable. And you're gonna mess up, own it. Who cares? I mess up every single day, and I don't try to cover it up. It's like I'm freaking human. I'm human. So yeah, I think just people that have a reason, and you can tell there's people that are building the company because they want to versus people that are building the company because they want the next $1 billion. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, if you have belief behind it, that's a big part of the reason to invest. So yeah, I think just kind of what you'd imagine.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe for the founder that's not a natural salesperson, what's one thing they can do to materially increase the quality of their pitch if you've got any ideas?
Drink alcohol.
It's not a bad one.
I'm joking. I think again, we all have our gifts. I'm not a technical engineering brained person. I'm a creative that likes to tell stories, like real stories, which means I got to have people in my life that can go and do the things that I'm not decent at or even good at. But, I think again, like life in the world of sales is about confidence, and it's about building the flywheel of confidence. And eventually, once you get there after enough reps and after enough experiences, you're like, wait a second, like I now believe what these people are saying. Right. So, how do I keep that going while remaining humble? And I think that as a founder, you try it enough, somebody is eventually going to say yes. The problem for some people, myself included, is that yes ends up becoming the most overwhelming thing ever because you're so used to them saying no. And so, how do you actually go and leverage that to become, like this real person? So, yeah, just get over yourself and realize, I love talking about music, right? I love finding conversations that bring it back to my family, my faith, or music. And if I talk about Van Morrison and Bob Seger to start a podcast, you got me. That's it. I'm comfortable. I'm casual. I'm myself. But if
Well,
we start talking about real estate and like, right, like that doesn't excite me. And so I found ways to kind of control the narrative in almost every conversation, in large part because of Van Morrison and Bob Seger, who I've never met yet. And that just kind of brings the level down where it's like, he's a normal guy, right? And this is just business. So yeah, easier said than done, but just be yourself, but get over it and realize that it's your job.
you mentioned earlier over communication, giving regular updates on that topic. I'm sure you get a lot of these at this point. For the founders that are listening and want to do it the right way, what does a well structured, ideal investor update email look like or include?
I think quarterly needs to be about the financials and maybe the asks. And I think, sporadically it can just be like, hey, this happened, heads up, or even better, like, hey, we got distribution into XYZ. It's just celebrate the wins, right? And you guys that are watching this that have sent these, you're going to know it's rare that you get a response when it's great news, but when it's not great news, people respond. And I think that, just being consistent with it is really, really important. And, I just don't think too much. And it's okay if it's a casual update. It's okay if it's something that is just a link to an article. If I see it in my mind and Adam is one of my investors in Bird Dog, I'd imagine you'd want to see it. So
Sure.
just send it.
Yeah.
I that again, you'd be surprised that eventually the people that are custom or seasoned investors are going to be like, "Why are you sending me all these updates?" I'm like, "Because you deserve to see them." And then they're like, "Oh man, I wish that all the other companies I was in did it." So I think just put yourself in the shoes of the investor, and that is not that hard to do.
Yeah. Totally.
And use
Uh,
AI. Freaking use
yeah.
AI. You have no
Totally.
excuse not to. No excuse.
Yeah. Last question for you, Rogers. Especially, I feel like you have a probably unique answer to this question because you have a bit of an unconventional way you kind of came into venture capital. If someone yet with an unconventional background really wants to move into early stage VC in the CPG consumer space, they're willing to just kind of do whatever it takes. From your perspective, what should or could they do to give themselves a real shot at whether it's they want to get a job?
Do it. Do it. Do your research, not too much. Trust your gut. Find an army of people that are going to believe in you. Have your story and burn your freaking ships or burn the ships. You got to have some kind of plan. But if you sit there and strategize too much, a dummy like me is already blown past you because I don't want to sit there for too long. And again, like every vertical has room for another. Like beverage, right? God knows how many beverage companies are starting today. There's probably 50 new beverage companies in the US launching today, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Like have a cool story, have great tasting liquid, have a reason, and find a support group and put your freaking blinders on and go.
Totally.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of a hoorah response. But again, I hope that I'm living proof. I literally left a very successful career because I wasn't happy. And nobody, myself included, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, would have thought that because it was kind of all about me. And no matter what anyone says, that eventually gets really lonely. And you want to share life and you want community and you want friends. There's not people in real estate calling me from another company being like, "Hey, Rogers, will you be on my podcast?" They would never do that. And this is so inviting and kind and supportive that latch on. And when you find your crew on, and when you know there's people that you don't mesh with, that's okay. Drown them out. And that's just kind of the story of my life.
That's a great way to close it. What's the best place for people to follow along with you,
That's
a
the last.
particular and then follow along with the firm? Or I'm sure you yeah, your inbound deal flow doesn't seem to be hurting, but what's the best place for founders to
You
get
always
in
do
touch?
more. Morrison Seger, like on this Path water bottle. Go to morrisonseger.com. For you founders, fill out one of our founder forms. For all you accredited investors that are interested in participating with us, fill out one of our forms as well. We're always looking for new investors. We're always looking for new deals, and there is no end goal. And so we're grateful to be a part of this. And yeah, I has anyone ever asked to take a shelf helpy selfie?
No, but as a first for everything.
Okay, thumbs up. Here we go. I took it. I got the first shelf help selfie.
Love it. Perfect.
So listen,
That'll you're starting a trend. I like it.
I love it. Well, congrats on what you're doing on 100 episodes. Amazing. Um, Thanks for helping share the story of people that deserve it. And
Yeah, for
female
sure.
founders, you got this. You got it.
Love it. Well, I think that's it. I think that's the pod.